Hello, my name is Jose Rivera III, and my major is political economics, and I am also studying for a minor in political science. I chose to discuss the Mexican drug cartel, their drug trafficking, as well as the economic impacts that occur because of their actions. I chose this topic because I've been interested in the national drug trafficking problems arising from Mexico, and with my economics major, I thought that analyzing the economic impacts would bring a different level of understanding to the table. I will begin this presentation by introducing the prominent Mexican drug cartels, as well as explaining the state of Mexico due to these cartels. I will then move into the drug trafficking aspect, and then I will conclude the presentation with the economic complexities that Mexico now faces due to the war on drugs. As an introduction to the issue, I would like to note that more than 200,000 people have been killed or have disappeared since Mexico's government declared war on organized crime in December of 2006. The military offensive has led to the destruction of some drug gangs, splits within others, and the emergence of new groups. With widespread corruption and impunity exacerbating Mexico's problems, there is no end in sight for the violence. Which are the most powerful cartels today, and who are behind them? First, the Sinaloa cartel. Founded in the late 1980s, the Sinaloa cartel, headed by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, has long been considered Mexico's most powerful criminal organization. Having outfought several rival groups, the Sinaloa cartel dominates much of northwest Mexico and makes billions of dollars from trafficking illicit narcotics to the United States, Europe, and Asia. However, the cartel's future is uncertain after Guzman was recaptured in 2016 following two daring prison breaks. The second is the Jalisco New Generation. Sinaloa's strongest competitor is its former armed wing, the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Formed around 2010, the cartel has expanded rapidly and aggressively across Mexico and is now challenging Sinaloa for control of strategic. How has the landscape changed? Mexico's criminal landscape has grown more fragmented since then President Felipe Calderón sent the army to combat the cartels in December of '06. The government succeeded in capturing or killing the leaders of the biggest cartels, but this led to many smaller and often more violent gangs springing up in their place. Without the capacity for transnational drug trafficking, these gangs deal in kidnapping, extortion, human trafficking, illegal logging and mining, and stealing oil from government pipelines. Are things better or worse than they were? The level of violence dropped after the election of President Enrique Peña Nieto in 2012, but it has shot up dramatically in the last 2 years, with 2017 on course to be the worst record ever. Activists and journalists are routinely murdered, while corruption and impunity remain rampant. The legalization of marijuana in parts of the United States has driven Mexico's cartels to push harder drugs like methamphetamine, heroin, fentanyl, which is a powerful synthetic opioid. This has fueled an epidemic north of the border, with over 33,000 Americans dying from opioid-related overdoses in 2015, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. How violent are the cartels? Mexico's cartels are notorious for their extreme violence; beheadings and tortures have become commonplace over the past decade. Victims are sometimes hung from bridges or dissolved in barrels of acid. Some cartels post graphic execution videos on social media to intimidate their enemies. This leads us to the second part: Mexico's drug trafficking and the war on drugs. President Enrique Peña Nieto, who assumed the presidency on December 1st of 2012, has continued the fight started by President Felipe Calderón against the cartels and drug-related violence. A huge victory for his administration was the 2014 arrest of El Chapo Guzman, the boss of one of Mexico's most powerful drug trafficking operations, the Sinaloa cartel. A 2015 Congressional Research Service report estimates at least 80,000 people have been killed due to organized crime-related incidents since 2006. Under Peña Nieto, overall intentional homicide numbers have declined as much as 30%, according to the Mexican government. Mexican drug cartels take in between $19 and $29 billion annually from U.S. drug sales. Over the last decade, what drugs do the cartels traffic? Mexican drug trafficking organizations, also known as DTOs, are the largest foreign suppliers of heroin, methamphetamines, and cocaine to the United States, according to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Mexican suppliers are responsible for most heroin and methamphetamine production, while cocaine is largely produced in Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru, and then transported through Mexico. Mexican cartels are also leading manufacturers and suppliers of fentanyl, a synthetic opioid many times more potent than heroin. U.S. seizures of the drug have soared in the last 5 years. The cartels also produce and smuggle vast quantities of marijuana into the U.S., but legalization of the drug in some U.S. jurisdictions has diminished cartel profits. As a result, experts note that DTOs are shifting their focus to harder drugs like heroin. By 2017, 28 U.S. states and Washington, D.C. had legalized the use of marijuana. What factors led to the growth of these cartels? Experts point to both domestic and international forces at play. In Mexico, cartels have used vast drug profits to neutralize government opposition, paying off judges, police, politicians, and other officials. For decades during the Institutional Revolution Party, 71-year one-party rule, DTOs exploited Mexico's entrenched politics to create a system-wide network of corruption that ensured distribution rights, market access, and even official government protection for drug traffickers in exchange for lucrative bribes. PRI's unbroken reign finally came to an end in 2000 with the presidential election of Vicente Fox of the National Action Party, PAN, and subsequent democratization upended the equilibrium that had developed between state actors and organized crime. according to a 2017 Congressional Research Service report. This leads us to the third part of the presentation, the economic impacts. The human costs of the drug war and related violence are well known, but the chilling effect on Mexico's economic vitality has been harder to measure. Recent research has shown the high levels of violence in Mexico, like the 7.6 increase in homicide rate the country experienced in 2015, not only have a negative impact on workers, but also prevent complex economic activities from starting and growing. Increasingly, economists are arguing that what really matters is not how much people participate in the market, but the particular sectors and industries in which these persons are participating. What violence is causing is killing the industries that are complex. In those regions that are very violent, complexity cannot flourish. Mexicans are also leaving the country for higher education, in part because of violence, a trend that is depriving the country of workers with the requisite skills for advanced industries to grow. This leads me to my conclusion. The effort to dismantle drug trade organizations from the top by capturing cartel leaders has served to splinter established cartels, which continue to operate unimpeded, but have morphed into fractious criminal cells across the country. Forced to evolve, the drug trade organizations have not only shifted in structure and hierarchy, but also diversified their ambitions, increasingly resorting to extortion, kidnapping, oil theft, and other means of financial gain. The murder rate has also doubled in Mexico since 2006, and this is due in part to the drug cartels' actions in Mexico. Yet the U.S. has continued to fund the war on both sides, with American tax dollars subsidizing the government's efforts and the wrinkled cash of drug users fueling the cartels. Clients in the U.S. have consistently spent well over $100 billion a year on illegal drugs like cocaine, heroin, meth, marijuana, according to a White House report on national